The world is full of urban legends, remarkable stories that spread like viruses around the planet, mutating and evolving until no one can remember which ones are true and which ones are urban legends. In this episode called Close Calls, we show you 3 stories all linked by near misses. First up, UK police desperately try to save face with a dangerous killer on the loose. Next, it's a story of a Croatian man with a habit for near-death experiences. Is he amazingly cursed or incredibly lucky? And finally, an unhappy Dutch couple finds a surprising way to inject some vim back into their marriage. Watch all 3 stories and decide which urban legends are true and which ones are false. Find out if you guessed right at the end of the show. First, it's a story we like to call Faceless Woman. Detective Frank Andrews knows the importance of not letting cases get to him. But not even Frank could avoid becoming consumed by one strange and violent crime spree.
The case had got so much under my skin. I was so obsessed. I had to see it through.
You can friggin' rot.
Frank became involved with the case back in 1992 in Reading, England, when a young woman was brutally murdered. 2 wine glasses left on her table are the best hope for evidence.
So we took those to check for saliva. Glass is also a very good surface for things like fingerprints.
There are no usable prints, but one glass does yield a DNA sample. Frank cross-references it, and incredibly, it matches DNA from 4 other unsolved crimes, including another murder.
This person seemed to just be acting in a random fashion, committing a variety of crimes that were not related, and this was of grave concern.
Even more shocking, the DNA profile is that of a woman.
Serial killers are almost exclusively male, and in that respect, this was a very unusual case.
A female serial killer is almost unheard of. The police find it hard to believe, but the same woman's DNA turns up at more crime scenes. The media picks up the story and gives the rampaging criminal a name.
The fact that this unknown perpetrator, she'd never been seen, that was the reason that the phrase was coined, the faceless woman.
6 months after the first murder, the pressure is mounting on Frank for results.
It became an obsession. I would go in on weekends and just go through the old files and the cold cases.
But apart from the DNA, Frank can find nothing to link the crimes.
I thought that it was somebody that just really was laughing at the police.
The faceless woman continues her random crime spree. But another murder 4 weeks later takes things to a new, disturbing level.
Yes, a man who'd been jogging in the park. He was attacked and killed, but being a fit young man, he'd put up a bit of a struggle, and we found blood and skin fragments under his nails. Not only did we find the DNA that matched the faceless woman, we also found DNA that matched an unknown male. This meant that she'd recruited an accomplice.
It's Frank's first solid break, and he jumps on it, determined to find out the identity of the faceless woman from her new partner.
We did find the accomplice. We brought him in and questioned him rigorously.
It's time to complete.
He refused to give up the identity of the faceless woman. In fact, he denied having an accomplice.
It's no use.
He was charged and sentenced, but in terms of the faceless woman, we were back at square one. I was absolutely gutted. I really thought that this was it. We were actually going to finally solve this case. I was even thinking of leaving the force and going into private security.
Only 10 days later, the faceless woman makes another appearance, this time with a baffling twist.
We had an unidentified male deceased. Following normal procedure, we took an oral swab. Needless to say, we were absolutely amazed to find the faceless woman's DNA from a male corpse. There's no way this could happen.
How could this be? How could a male corpse have the same DNA as the faceless woman? Frank doesn't know what to make of it. Until, with a sinking sensation, it occurs to him that he may have been overlooking the obvious.
The DNA kits that were being used all came from a medical supply company located in Birmingham.
Everything suggests someone has been tampering with the DNA kits. Finally, Frank believes he has his case sussed.
Next, please.
DNA samples from the medical supply company turns up a match. Frank has tracked down his longtime nemesis. The faceless woman is Mrs. Millie Harris, a 59-year-old lab worker.
And who are you?
Millie Harris.
Obviously, no serial killer.
We observed her for a few days to find out, was this malicious tampering or accidental?
Finally, Frank gets his answer. This bizarre and complex mystery has a ridiculously simple solution.
The DNA kits contain cotton swabs which are used to gather evidence. Most of these swabs were very uniform, but occasionally they would be a little bit ragged, and this one lady, in order to keep them uniform, would lick her fingers and press them back into shape, thereby contaminating those samples with her DNA.
With the odd, well-meaning lick, Millie unwittingly had the police chasing their own tails.
This obviously is one of the more bizarre things I've observed. It just goes to show you can never be sure of anything that's in front of you.
A police force spends 9 months hunting a serial killer, only to discover the criminal is an innocent woman. But did it really happen? You'll have to wait until the end of the show to find out. But before then, check out this mini-myth. Mini-myth number 1422, that coat's on me. In a Columbus, Ohio coat store, Linda Brown shouted out, "Hey everyone, coats are on me. I just won the lottery." 500 lucky people swarmed the racks, desperate to get their share, as Linda left in her stretch limo to go get the cash to pay. But lo and behold, much to the chagrin of the waiting horde, it was a huge prank. A riot broke out as people tried to steal the coats they believed they were due. But Linda had beat a safe retreat. Was it true, or wrapped in a cloak of lies? It was totally true. The joke was on Linda when she got arrested for causing the riot and not paying her $900 limo bill. On Urban Legends, we show you 3 stories. You have to decide which ones really happened and which ones are merely legends. So far, you've seen the tale of a confounding crime spree that turned out to be a case of contaminated DNA swabs. But is it true or false? Find out at the end of the show. Now it's time for our next story. It's called Lucky Man. Frano Selak loves to entertain. But the biggest crowd pleaser isn't his music. It's the incredible story of his life.
Onda stvarno zamišljam da sam ipak sretan čovjek.
In fact, Frano may be the luckiest man who has ever lived.
Na mome mjestu bio gotov, umro bi.
Frano's story begins in Croatia in 1958. He's a teacher on a school trip.
I onda smo krenuli sa školskim autobusom kojega je vozio jedan stari vozač, interesantno, koji nije mogao voziti ako nije popio pola litre rakije prije.
After dropping off the kids, Frano and the driver head out for lunch. Suddenly, the driver loses control.
Mi idemo pravo na ogradu, mi bubne u tu ogradu, autobus preko ograde se okrene 2 puta u zraku, u rijeku Bosnu.
The horrific crash would have killed most people. But somehow, Frano survives.
Mo pobogu, što si to učinio? Kaže, gledajte što. I on izvuče volan potpuno je iz sjedišta ispao.
Neither man can believe his bad luck or their good fortune at being alive. Frano believes it's a sign.
A Božja volja je bila ta da mi se ne dogodi ništa.
But God's plan for Frano is far stranger than he could have ever imagined. 3 years later, his brush with death is a distant memory. Frano is on a long train ride.
Kad na jedan put tresak. Ko da je bomba udarila u vlak.
The train derails and plunges into the icy water.
I sad, kad čovjek gleda smrti u oči, onda je najhrabriji.
The train cars sink.
To je sve bilo kao u snu, shvaćate. I ja sam najprije izašao i babu moju izvukao van.
17 passengers die. But just like his first crash, Frano escapes without a scratch.
I ja kažem, bio je autobus, bio je vlak, i sad ne daj Bože sa konjima, kolima ili malim autom ili brodom ili nešto.
Frano won't have to wait long to find out. A year later, Frano is avoiding buses and trains, but he can't resist the latest form of transportation. It's his very first flight, and he's determined to take advantage of every last luxury.
Vidim ja zgodna mačka, idem ja malo da se udvaram. I pođem tamo prema repu, tamo ona ima bife, tamo se, vi znate kako su avioni, ne znam danas.
Frano practices his Croatian charm on the flight attendant. Suddenly, the unbelievable happens.
Samo znam to, da su se vratašca za nužni izlaz na rep aviona, koji je bio odmah do bifeja, otvorila.
Before it crashes, Frano is sucked from the plane. Free falling without a parachute. Surely, this is the end for Frano. But something amazing happens.
Da sam otišao 2 metra naprijed, nazad, levo, desno, u kakav kamen, ono gotovo, evo, kao palačinka.
A haystack breaks his 2,000-foot fall. Once again, incredible luck has saved Frano's life.
Zavrtio i pao je dole, eksplodirao, zapalio i sve putnici su bili ugljenisani.
If the emergency exit hadn't blown open and sucked him out, Frano would have died with the other passengers.
Bog je rekao, Frano, ti ne smiješ umreti. I amen.
After escaping death for a third time, Frano thinks God must be done playing games with him. But he's wrong. On the 5th of June 2002, 2 days after his 73rd birthday, fate finally catches up with Frano. A lifetime of near misses is about to change.
Ono najnevjerovatnije, kad se sjetim...
As Frano stops to check his lotto ticket, he has no idea what is about to hit him.
Jackpot.
Finally, Frano's luck has done more than save him from death.
Dan jedini sam ja bio dobitnik od 800.000 eura. I onda sam ja, to mi je trebalo da promeni život.
But even with his wealth, Frano's past has left its mark. After bad luck with planes, trains, and buses, there's only one form of transportation he truly trusts.
I nikad više. Evo sad vi da me zovete, sad rekao bi, hvala, ako ćete mi platiti, idem brodom.
A man survives 3 crazy accidents, only to win the lottery. But is it true? You'll have to wait till the end of the show to find out. But before then, check out this mini-myth. Mini-myth number 5,761. Lottery ticket. Jim Morgans had cause for a celebratory drink when he realized he'd bought the winning ticket. His fellow bar patrons responded with disbelief, forcing him to pass it around so they could see for themselves. The ticket went from hand to hand around the bar. Except when it arrived back to Jim, it was a completely different ticket. One of the man's friends had swapped and swiped the winning ticket, cashed it anonymously, and disappeared with the winnings. So what do you think? Is this tale a winning ticket? The story's in fact a fake. Although one which is particularly popular in China. On Urban Legends, we show you 3 incredible stories. Your mission is to sort the totally true from the fantastically false. So far, you've seen the tale of Frank Andrews, who spent 9 months hunting a hardened criminal, only to discover he was chasing contaminated DNA swabs. And the story of Lucky Frano Selak, who survived 3 accidents against the odds, then won the lottery. But which ones are real and which ones are fake? All will be revealed at the end of the show. In the meantime, watch our final story. We've named it Twisted Tryst. Geerta Van Dyke knows how quickly a relationship can grow stale. But she never imagined what would ultimately happen to her marriage.
For seconds, it was real, and for seconds, it was unreal. It was twisted, twisted, twisted.
It would leave her changed forever. Back in 1995, Jacob and Geerta Van Dyke had been married for 12 years. But things aren't what they once were.
At home, we had difficulties. It was tedious and flat and predictable.
To make matters worse, the Van Dykes have financial issues. Jacob's spending habits are out of control.
Sometimes when I needed to pay for everyday things such as groceries or car bills and so on, the accounts were empty. It seemed like he was spending all the money, and I was trying really hard to keep us on a budget.
Geerta assumes the worst.
I thought maybe he had a more serious problem with gambling than what I had known, and playing a big shot.
But in reality, Jacob has taken to spending all their money on something else: prostitutes. Jacob is careful to conceal his secret from his wife, but ignorance is far from bliss for Geerta.
Sometimes I thought about leaving the marriage, what other possibilities might be there for me.
Geerta decides it's time for a change. She finds herself a part-time job just outside of town. And the change in routine does a world of good for Geerta.
So I felt more like myself again. It was nice to be with people in different situations, and I felt appreciated.
Meanwhile, Jacob's addiction is taking over his life.
There was always something else going on and shadowing us, and I didn't know.
The couple are drifting further and further apart.
He never asked to visit me at work, and he never probed for more details. I knew that he wasn't aware of what I was doing.
But all that's about to change. One fateful evening, Jacob decides it's time to try a new brothel. But Geerta's new job is the oldest profession in the world.
It was a funny feeling to see him walk in the room, because I was in a secret world, and it was unreal.
What are you doing here?
I didn't expect that my husband would walk in the door.
How will they get past this?
I escorted him to a side room, and in a business way informed him of what my fee would be, and he was surprised, and it also excited him.
Instead of being horrified, the couple find themselves feeling something else altogether.
It was unbelievable in one way to me, and in another way it was welcoming. It felt like he was a different man, and I was probably a different woman. We were a little bit at a loss. Following that, after a few minutes, took the lead and suggested to him same place next week. He responded with a happy smile on his face.
From that day, every week Jacob and Gjerta relight their fire in the comfort of a brothel. It was not an outcome either of them could have predicted.
I think we both looked forward to this with excitement.
Lying and cheating are two things that normally destroy a relationship. But for Gjerta and Jacob, it's the ingredient that saved their marriage. But did it really happen? The time has now come to find out. It's time to reveal the truth about our three incredible stories. First up, it's the story of Frank Andrews, who was led on a wild police goose chase by some contaminated DNA swabs. But is it fact or fiction?
An incredible story and totally bogus. I'm not a copper, I'm an actor.
A similar story happened in Europe over a span of 15 years, but they never found out how the swabs were contaminated. Next, it's the tale of Frano Salak, the luckiest man in the world, who thwarted death 3 times and then won the lottery. But did it happen?
Ja sam Frano Selak. Kažu I pišu najsretniji čovjek na svijetu.
This story is totally true. Which leaves the story of Gjerta van Dijk and the unbelievable coincidence of running into her husband at the brothel where she secretly worked. But is it true?
Prostitution is permitted in Holland, and that's the only part of this story which is true. I'm a school teacher.
This story is fantastically fake, but versions of this have been circulating the internet since 2001. That's the end of our episode called Close Calls. Were you able to separate the righteously right from the ridiculously wrong? Don't worry if you couldn't. You'll get another chance to separate fact from fiction in the next installment of Urban Legends.